This is a picture of me when I was 4 in the hospital in Dayton, Ohio. I wonder if that's a little bit of a portent of what was to come, because I did spend approximately 8.5 years in prison, and that was me. So I wonder if future telling can be said from images. My name is Jay Webb. I am here to talk to you tonight about something that is extremely bothersome to me in the United States today. Prison overcrowding. People say that so many people are creating crimes, committing crimes, and doing this, that, and the other. We all make mistakes. What I feel, and the research that I've done throughout the years I was in prison and the years that I've been out, I've found that there are 3 leading factors to the problem of overcrowding. First leading factor is plea agreements. Plea agreements are supposed to help an inmate or defendant achieve a lesser sentence. Unfortunately, through the research I found, that isn't always the case, because I was in prison with several people who actually could have gotten less time if they would have just had a better public defender or did a little bit more research before they accepted the plea agreement. According to the United States Bureau of Justice Statistics, in 2013, we had over 2.2 million people incarcerated in the United States. That is exponentially overbounding compared to any other country on this planet. That's ridiculous. I have found through the research I did while incarcerated that a lot of these individuals could have gotten lesser sentences if they would have had a better public defender. Prison incarceration has 3 avenues in which to take a defendant to prison. You have your first encounter with law enforcement, where they will interrogate you and do what is called sometimes a custodial interrogation, and they won't read the rights to an inmate until after he's at the jail. They can get away with this by not stating that an individual is in custodial interrogation. Custodial interrogation. What this means is that if a suspect is being interrogated and the officer realizes or knows that that individual is going to be taken to jail that night, regardless of the interrogation process outcome, that means that that inmate is in custodial interrogation. If that suspect is in custodial interrogation, then he has certain rights that are called Miranda rights. And a lot of officers do not read an individual their Miranda rights until after they are at the jail. Everybody sees and knows the fact that, okay, I wasn't read my rights. Well, technically, under the law, you were read your rights upon being arrested. You're not under arrest until you get to the jail. A lot of people don't realize that. So, I'm sure you've all heard of Miranda versus Arizona. In 1963, an individual requested a motion be heard by the United States Supreme Court stating that he wasn't given his right to not speak. His last name, of course, was Miranda. So, this individual filed a motion with the Supreme Court and said, okay, I wasn't read my rights under the laws, so therefore my case should be dismissed. Eventually it was, but that's the reason now we have Miranda rights. But there are loopholes, and every officer, I have nothing against the police, they are here to protect us. But there are loopholes concerning custodial arrest and custodial interrogation that a lot of people do not realize. That's the first step in the process of the reason that our prisons are overcrowded. The second step are public defenders. Public defenders are necessary because, like me, there are a lot of people who do not have the money to hire an attorney. So, you are given a public defender. A lot of these people don't have what it takes to be a public defender because they are piled on inmates and defendants, so they run them through the course and through the courts as quickly as they can to get them over with to get to the next case. They don't fully investigate the case, they don't fully understand, they don't fully explain the rights to their defendant, to their clients, and they don't understand what the process is of how many lives they are touching. How many of you guys in the audience have or know of family members that are incarcerated? Well, if you will look beside you, I guarantee you that at least one person beside you, to the right or left, knows or has someone who's incarcerated. There is a report by Aubrey and Mainstay in 2017 that states there are still 1.5 million individuals in our federal, state, county, and other types of prison incarcerations in our country that are there simply for small things, but yet they're given 10 years. People don't seem to understand that plea agreements and public defenders work hand in hand, and they're going to try to rush through the court as fast as possible. Those are the first two. I'm sorry, please forgive me. This is the first time I've ever done a speech. These are the public defender and the initial contact with law enforcement are the two first topics that I feel are contributing to the prison overpopulation. The third are plea agreements. Plea agreements are agreements that give a defendant less time, supposedly, where they basically come in and say, okay, yes, I did the crime, this is how I did it, this is what I did, here we go, sign the paper, go to prison. I was in prison with an individual, he's Russian, and he looked at me, he said, Jay, you got to, sign the paper and go to prison and you get out free, man. Well, it's not always that case. Because in the United States, we have what is called probation. So you're not a free man when you get out of prison. Maybe in other countries, but you're not. I helped over 17 people in prison obtain early release and reduction of sentences simply because they weren't read their rights correctly. They didn't understand what they were signing. And it is very passionate for me to actually help them understand and receive their fair sentence, not just a sentence. Yes, they committed a crime. They did the wrong. We all make mistakes. Everybody says, oh, everybody deserves a second chance. They do. I do. I did. I got my second chance. I filed my motions. My judge saw that I did great. I taught GED in prison. I also helped out other inmates in prison. So he saw what I was doing, and he released me 3.5 years early. Very, very fortunate for me. But On the other hand, I did my research. I did what it took to make sure I was in front of of the people I needed to be in front of. I tell you, the majority of people in prison have no knowledge whatsoever of what their rights are under the system. I guess in conclusion, it seems to me that we need to adjust our incarceration system in the United States. We have way too many fathers, daughters, sons, and mothers that aren't spending Christmas at home for 10 years when they could have gotten 2 years. And things like that really get to me because I feel family is most important in all our lives. I'm probably sure I haven't touched base enough on references and citations in this, but I feel that the outcome is bleak because the legislation and the court system and district attorneys and public defenders, they're all going to look for the fast route. They're all going to look for the fast avenue, and they're not going to give a crap about the rights and understandings of a defendant. Once that is understood and we start learning to say, hey, why are we sending 18-year-old kids to prison for 15 years when technically, if the research would have been done and the investigation would have been done, that 18-year-old kid could have only gotten 2 years? It just bothers me to no end that this type of thing continually goes on. One of the inmates that I assisted to gain an early release was a 3-time hitter. So he was there for a long time. But the first 2 were very minor misdemeanors. Yet the district attorney, took those 2 misdemeanors, compounded them into this 3rd crime, which was a drug offense, which became a felony, counted all 3 of those items as the 1, 2, and 3rd hit. Well, he didn't understand this when he signed a plea agreement. So the plea agreement said 1, 2, 3, doom, you're done. You're 25 years, goodbye. That wasn't the case. By law, it states that those 3 hits have to be felony. By law, those 3 hits have to be a certain amount of money or a certain amount of product or a certain amount of this or that or the other. And this is all under the United States Bureau of Justice Statistics. It's all there on the Bureau's website. If you'll go to that and look it over, you'll see how many people have been incarcerated, what the offenses are, what the scale is, and things like that. The main process that we need to realize and we need to understand is that incarceration has got to stop. We're incarcerating too many individuals who get into prison, young kids, 18, 19 years old, and are there for 10 to 15 years. They're going to come out even harder than they went in. I saw it myself. It's mind-blowing. They say all these wonderful programs in prison. I was in prison for 8.5 years. People, let me tell you, it's a joke. It really is a joke. I taught GED to 18-year-olds and 57-year-olds and 60-year-olds. I was in front of groups all day long, and I helped people get their GED. I felt great about that. But the programs that are in prison are not all they're cut out to be. They're not. But harping on that, back to the prison overpopulation. In conclusion, I want you to know that I'm very nervous. I like talking to people. I can't stand talking to a phone. So it's really amazing to me that I'm actually doing this. It's a passion for me. So we need to step up to the plate, and we need to start writing our congressmen and our congresswomen And we need to start letting them know that we need to change the way we incarcerate individuals in the United States. That's a plain and simple. If we can do that and we get the people in there without thinking in the back of our mind, oh, well, he did a crime, he needs to go to jail. Fine, he committed a crime, she committed a crime. That's fine. Okay, we realize that. But we need to take into account all circumstances, all reasons, whys, whats, and whats. Then make a decision. Not just run someone through the court system with a public defender that grabbed a first plea agreement that a district attorney went and got. Well, I hope that was a little bit informative. I hope my grade's good. So, let's see what this looks like now. Thank you. Again, my name is Jay Webb. Have a great afternoon and weekend. Blessed be.